Some of y'all caught it last week. Boom, boom. Ain't it great to be crazy? If you're looking around like, what are they talking about? Feel free to check out our YouTube channel and reference our last sermon under the title, Boom, Boom. But I wanted to go somewhere different today. I wanted to move, man. I had a sermon that I worked out, and I was in love with it. And God said, that's cool. I love that you like it. We're going to talk about faith today. So we're not in a series, but if you will allow, let us continue our study on faith. Just a quick synopsis for those who were not here last week. We talked about, through the writer of Hebrews, the notion that faith is not something that can be quantified. It's not something that's tangible. You can't understand it. You can't hold it. You can't grasp it. If we could put it into one word, all capital letters, faith is, in fact, crazy. The writer of Hebrews begins to tell us about individuals who demonstrated this type of crazy faith in the Bible. Individuals who were just insane, out of their minds, crazy. I'm going to build a boat in the middle of the forest, never seen rain before, nowhere near an ocean, but I'm going to do it because God said so. Crazy. I'm going to get up and just walk through the desert with my entire family. I don't know where I'm going, but the voice in the sky told me that it would tell me to stop when I got there. Crazy. Just insane, out of our mind faith. Crazy. Boom, boom. We left with some awesome things last week, man. We saw that faith is, in fact, the substance of things hoped for. We didn't understand it before, but we get it now. It's the foundation on which the things that are not yet here but are coming are going to be built upon. Bless the Lord. Faith is also the evidence of those things which are not seen. We see faith, and we know we have proof, we have evidence that even though we can't see it, something is in fact on the horizon, something is on the way. It's amazing, but it's crazy faith. Boom, boom. Ain't it great to be crazy? But we're continuing in faith today, and remember last week we talked about how faith has so many different aspects and so many different facets. Faith was so broad, it's so multifaceted that it's impossible to understand it in the context of just one sermon or in the context of one study. Most Bible writers speak about it, and they use several different kinds of faith to describe it. But James decided he wanted to talk about faith as well. He didn't want to leave it to Hebrews. He didn't want to leave it to Paul. He didn't want to leave it to Peter. He didn't want to leave it to John. He said, I want to discuss this thing, faith, as well. And as you read through James, anyone read James in here? Anyone read through James? It's short. You can do it. In fact, if you want, you can go home and read it today. It's only 5 chapters. And you can pat yourself on the back and say, I read a book of the Bible. James, great book. But as you read through James, what you will discover, Cliff, get the shirts ready because they're going to do it. What you will discover is that James is a practician. See, some of us, we go to seminary and we spend, 3 years, 2.5 years in the seminary discussing the theory of God, the theology. We discuss the concepts of who he is and what he does and what he may be made of. And sometimes you'll walk through the seminary hallways and you hear these very, very deep, very, very, very mind-blowing conversations. Did Adam and Eve have belly buttons? These very, very philosophical, theoretical conversations. Well, if in fact Adam and Eve were perfect, then they would not have need for the removal of anything. So maybe they didn't have colons. He's very deep, or people will talk about, here's one that'll blow your mind, because God is all-powerful. There's nothing that God cannot do. So can God, in fact, create a mountain that he himself cannot lift? These are the kind of things that people discuss, very theoretical, very, very philosophical, very, very deep-thinking questions that at the end of the day mean nothing when I'm trying to pay my bills. And when my kids are wilding out, and my marriage is collapsing, and there's death all around me, and I have problems on the job, and problems in the home, and problems in my mind. None of this stuff helps me. What did Paul mean when he said this? How did his dream, how was it interpreted? How would have spent this much time in none of that matters. But James is a practitioner. James likes stuff that he can use not just on Sabbath, Tuesday, or the worst day of the week, Monday. James wants stuff he can talk about at the water cooler. James wants stuff that he can use when he's cutting his grass. James wants stuff that he can use as he's washing his car. Things that'll affect the way he does it. James is a practitioner. They refer to him as James the Pious. This man, he spent so much in study and so much time on his knees that his knees were apparently calloused from the amount of times that and hours that he would spend on his knees. But all of that stuff did not just amount to esoteric knowledge and information he could spout in front of people to sound wise. No, James was practical. And so if you read through James, you'll find that James is the book that Christians read when they want to figure out how to be a Christian for dummies. How to use this. James. How do I work this thing out? Well, someone spoke about faith. How does it work? James is the manual. So James is discussing faith. And of course, since James is discussing faith in the practical sense, James would attach something very practical to it, this notion of work. Now, at a quick glazed over reading, I preached last week, so I'm just going to teach this week if it's okay. You got to just glaze over it. You kind of miss what it's saying, especially if you just interpret it on your own. Some of us have legalized the mess out of what James is saying. Well, no, faith without works is dead. So, you need to do this, that, and the third on this day at this time, or you will not be saved. What's that? You're eating chicken? You won't make it in the kingdom. And now that stuff may be cool, but it's not what James is talking about. James wants you to know that faith requires practice. It requires practice. It requires effort. So James says faith without works is dead. He talks about it very, very, very plainly. He says, if your faith is absence of work, what can it do? Can it save you? He asks, if someone comes to you and you give them faith, will that feed them tonight? He goes on further in his treatise on faith, and he begins to talk to you about what faith is supposed to look like, right after saying that faith, in fact, if absent of works, is not faith at all. It's actually dead. Now, some of you don't get that. So in a very crude example, if you want something a little bit more more solid, more book savvy, talk to a few of our doctors, and they will get you schooled up. But if you have a body, a human body, and that body is devoid of breath, that human body has to some degree ceased to be human. It's no longer what it was. It now is, in fact, dead. I wish somebody was with me today. There's nothing there that resembles anything that was there before. So while it was a human being, and it did go through all the processes that human beings go through, and it exhibited the characteristics that human beings exhibit, it currently does not. It is, in fact, now dead. So you cannot refer to it as you did before. We call dead people corpses. It's something different than it was before. And the reason why it's different is because something that should be there is missing. James says this is how you should look at your faith. Something that should be there is missing. And if that thing is in fact missing, don't call it faith. call it dead. When you walk around and someone says, man, God's really going to do this thing, if it's missing what it's supposed to have, don't respond, yes, I know, he has, because I have faith. You should instead reply, I'm not really sure, because all I have is dead. When someone tells you, just hold on, hope is on the way, I know it's not going your way right now, but God said that he would work it out for you. Don't respond with, I understand that, and I believe it, and I receive it, because I have faith. In fact, you should say, I'm not sure, because all I have is dead. When Paul says that we're looking forward to the blessed hope, the glorious appearing of our Lord and Savior, when he talks further and says, then this same Jesus will descend with a shout, and the trump of God, and the voice of the archangel, and the dead in Christ will rise first, and then we who are yet alive and remain will be caught up with them in the air, and we will be transformed in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, and we shall behold him, and we will be caught with him and taken to live with him. Don't say, I have faith. I believe that thing. Just fold your heads. Drop your head and say, I'm not really sure about that, Paul, because all I have is dead. When it's missing the thing it needs to call it faith, don't refer to it as such. Just call it dead. Well, what is it that is missing that would make me refer to it as dead as opposed to faith? James says very plainly, the thing that is missing is in fact work. He says in verse 18, somebody may say, you have faith and I have works. Show me your faith without the works, and I will show you faith, my faith, by works. And watch this thing. Watch his juxtaposition. You say you have faith. I say I have works. Show me your faith. I will show you my faith with works. And we will see that one of them does not look like the other. See, anybody can have faith. Anybody can believe. Anybody can know. Anybody can purpose that God will do something. Don't believe me? Ask James. Because he goes further and says, even the demons believe and tremble. Every demoniac in the Bible, as Jesus approached them, they would open their mouths and they would exclaim, what is it you want with me? Jesus, Son of the Most High God. They knew who he was. They all understood and believed that at some point he would wrap this thing up and they would be destroyed. They had faith. James says, oh, they got that thing down pat. They can exclaim with the best of them just as well as you can. He says they even tremble when they see him. They know his magnitude. They know his power. Watch this thing. They're not trembling because when he walks in the room, he makes them tremble. They're trembling because they've recognized who he is, and out of fear and awe, they can't keep their bodies still. Involuntary reaction to the presence of God. They got some faith. Demons walk around saying, at some point, man, this thing gonna wrap up. They're Bible workers, y'all. At some point, this thing gonna finish. Yeah. And you know, the lake of fire, it wasn't created for humans. No. It's for us. It's for us. And Christ is coming to claim those who have attached themselves to him, and we would burn. And those who we have been able to convince otherwise, they will burn with us, because misery loves company. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. And you would say, well, how do you know? When have you seen it? When has it happened? No, I haven't seen it. Eyes have not seen, nor ears heard. I don't know what's going. I can't quantify it, but I believe this thing's going to happen. I know it. I have faith. Ain't no difference between you and them if your faith is faith alone and absent of works. He says, But are you unwilling, verse 20, to recognize, you foolish fellow, that faith without works is in fact useless? Was not Abraham our father justified by works when he offered up his son Isaac on the altar? Watch this thing. God said, I have a promise for you. God said, I'm going to do some stuff through you. I will give you a son. And through that son, every nation on this earth will be blessed. In fact, through that son, you will bring forth a multitude of individuals who cannot be numbered if you are using the stars as an abacus. You cannot figure out how many I'll give you. Count the grains of sand on the beach. They don't come close to what I'm going to do to you. Now, once I give you this promise, I need you to pick it up and put it on this altar and get ready to sacrifice it. Work. See, you can say, I believe God is going to do it all you want. You can say, I believe that God will bring forth something with this thing that he's given to me. But can you put your money where your mouth is? Can you take the thing that God said he's going to give to you, the thing he promised that you would receive, the thing that he's been talking to you about for several thousands of years, and take that thing and put it on the altar of sacrifice at the command of God, and still believe in your heart that should this thing come to an end right now, God will still do with it what he said he's going to do? Does your faith have a companion named work? Or is it dead? Because watch this thing now. If Abraham had failed to put Isaac on that stone, he would have forfeited the promise that God declared for him. His promise would have been dead, absent of work. He said, what about Rahab? Yeah, she had faith. She believed. But when the spies came to her, did she not also take them in and send them out a different way, that they would not be discovered? Did she put some work on her faith? And one would understand as you read the story that had Rahab not let the spies out a different way, had she not received them in, then Rahab would have been destroyed with the rest of the city when it fell, dead. When your faith is missing something, when it's missing that work that actually makes it faith, it is in fact not faith. It is dead. Don't call it faith. Call it dream killer. Call it promise breaker. Call it forfeiter. Call it drawer out of promise. Call it remover of God's word. When your faith is not accompanied by work, that faith is in fact dead. How can we recognize, though, that this faith is workless faith? Well, the first thing you got to do is you got to realize that James isn't calling you to work for work's sake. I got to say this because we have Adventists in this room. And sometimes we get things twisted. James isn't calling you to work for work's sake. Everything James is saying is predicated already on the notion that Jesus has done the work. I ain't got time to go through this book. Go read through it. Jesus has done the work. James is quoting the same notion, is speaking on the same notion that Paul speaks when he talks to us in Ephesians 2. When he says, this thing is not of works, but is a free gift of God. And he speaks to us and says, now because we have received the gift of God and we are in fact saved, we are now able to do works. What he's saying is, you could not do work if you wanted to, if Jesus had not already done work in you. And because he's done work in you, you are now able and free to do work. He said, everything you did beforehand, thinking it was good work, that was actually the work of the devil. The stuff you did. Man, I donated. I gave this much, and I studied, and I know my lesson, and I this, that, and the third. If you did that thing outside of the work and advent of Jesus Christ in your life, that wasn't of God. That was the devil. But because he's done work in you, you are now able to do good work. See, you're a filter. You're a faucet. And you're going to produce some water. If you live in Flint, you can produce some kind of water. Now, you can produce all the water you want. It don't mean the water is clean. Because of the source of the water. But now, if you allow him to go in there and do the work of changing out the pipes and restoring the water system and cleaning out the source and applying a filter to you, then when you're turned on, the water that comes out of you will be clean water. You could not have produced clean water if you wanted to without the work being done. So you're producing clean water now. That's the work that's been done. But now he says, in the same token that Paul says, now there's work for you to do. Yeah, the work has been done. And the faucet has been turned on. You just now have to be the conduit through which water flows. There's work for you. You shut yourself up and don't let any water out. You can have faith all you want. Ain't no clean water going to flow. So he says there's some work. But what does the work look like? How can I tell that I have faith but no works? Because I'm working, James. I'm doing stuff. How can I tell that this is in fact not work? It's dead. James says the first thing you realize when you have faith devoid of works is that you have a faith that cannot save. You have a faith that cannot save. Oh, Lord have mercy. Romans 10:9. If you confess with your mouth and believe with your heart Jesus Christ is Lord, and God the Father raised him from the dead, then you will be saved. That's faith. But that faith has work tied in it already. If you confess with your mouth after believing in your heart. See, it's one thing to believe it in your heart. But do you really believe it in your heart if that belief in your heart does not motivate your action? If your action is not motivated by belief, it cannot save. Y'all want a practical example? Y'all want something? This house is on fire. Don't run. It's not for real. I should have said that at first, but you know. It's on fire. All of you believe it. You know that. You know it's on fire. But that belief hasn't motivated you to get up and walk toward one of our exits. That faith can't save you. You will die. You realize it. Chris gets it. He knows. It's on fire. Man. He leaps up and runs out. But nobody in the building has he told. Chris, your daddy left you in here. He's in the parking lot. He left you here. That faith cannot save. If you're honest, it's actually a faith that condemns. Because it's not faith. It's dead. And all death does is consume. James says the first way you know that your faith is absent of works, that your faith is in fact dead, is that that faith cannot save. James, okay, so what else then? If it's that, I can fix that thing, I think. I just got to tell people. Just tell them, open my mouth and let my actions, But he says, no, it's not just that. Not only can it not save, it's also useless. So even if you wanted to use it to save, it would be unable to do so. Let me put this thing in the text for y'all think I'm making some stuff up. Pastor preached a good word, but he never went back to that text. See, James asked the question in verse 14. He says, when someone says they have faith but have no works, he says, can that faith save you? It's faith that cannot save. But then he goes further and says, if a brother or sister who is in need of clothing, of sustenance, of substance, of a good word, of a hold, a hug, a shoulder to cry on, a pillow to lay their head, a roof over their heads, shoes on their feet, if they are requiring medical attention, if they need something, because this is James, y'all, tangibly practical, and they come to you as they are in need, and Fant, you say, peace be unto you. That's your voice. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and give you peace. It's the pastor's S. Let him lift his face upon you and go now and be warmed and be filled. In Jesus' name. And you got faith. And they walk out of here and they have no food in their belly when they came to you hungry, and they have no clothes on their back when they came to you naked. They have none of the things that they needed when they came to you. In the moment they left, you have a useless faith. Faith that does nothing. That's where the concept comes from, being so heavenly minded, but of no earthly good. Man, there are some people out here who need some help. We got to feed them. We got to clothe them. We got to do some work. We got to bring them in. We got to tell them the good news of the gospel of Jesus Christ. But can't do it today because it's Sabbath. When the extent of your faith culminates in good conversation over potluck on Sabbath, useless. Not here, other churches. When your faith does not have something attached to it called work, which practically brings out the characteristics of that faith, then it's not faith at all. If your cherry tree does not produce cherries, it's not a cherry tree. Christ says, I am the true vine, and you are in me. If you do not bear good fruit, because faith without works, dead. Watch this thing. He's not saying faith without works is dead faith. No. This is an equalizer. Faith without works. It's not faith without works is dead. It's faith without works is dead. You are holding dead. Not it will become dead, not may eventually be dead. It is currently unsalvific, unsaving, useless stuff. Don't call that faith. Because faith has the power to save. Faith has the power to heal. Faith has the power to restore. Faith has the power to lift up. Faith has the power to call all people. Faith has the power to clothe. Faith has the power to enrich and uplift. And that thing you have does none of it. That's not faith. It's a well-designed counterfeit called dead. But your faith should, in fact, be something that brings people all of the healing that is described when you hear faith discussed. You see, because Jesus healed by faith. Oh, yes, he did. He would talk to people and tell them, I can heal you. Do you believe? Their response would be, yes, I believe. And in fact, if they were tottering on the edge, they would say, I believe, but help thou my unbelief. He would question them and say, do you have faith to receive what it is that I'm going to do for you? Yes, Jesus, I do. I truly believe it. In my heart of hearts, I know you can do it. You are able, and you are willing, and you are worthy. You can do all things. You are unstoppable, undefeatable. You can do it. He would say, cool, stretch forth your hand. I need you to work. Stretch your lame hand out. I know you shouldn't be able to move it, but you have faith. Put some work on it. You want to walk again? Do you want to walk? Yes, Jesus, I wish that my legs would work and carry me around as they should. I wish that I would be able to go around and tell people about the goodness of Jesus and all you. I want to walk into the temple dancing. So people say, when I came in with Peter, it looked like I did not know how to use my limbs. I want to walk in there with you, Jesus. What should I do? How can I do it? Take up your bed and walk. Put some work on your faith. I know you never walked before, but you believe. So stand up, pick up your bed, put it on your back, and walk. Put some work on it. I know you know me. If you would just touch me, you would be healed. You would be restored. But it's not enough for you to sit in your house and know that I can do it. That's not how your healing comes. You need to get up and fight through the press. Put yourself on the ground and crawl toward me by any means necessary. Get a hold of me. Stretch out trembling hand. And I know you can't get all of me. I know I'm surrounded and I'm too far and I'm moving too fast. But if you can just grab the hem of my garment, just the tip, just the tassel, and I promise you healing. But first, take your faith and put some work on it. When Jesus healed, it was in faith, but it was never devoid of work. Never devoid of work. People would lower individuals through ceiling tiles in the middle of church services. If I can get them in front of Jesus, I know he can do it, but I got to do some work. This passive Christianity we have, where we can just believe stuff and receive it, name it and claim it. I can just lift my hand up and God will drop something on me. That is not faith. It's dead. It won't produce anything. Nothing will come of it. Don't believe me? I mean, come on, just use your practical relationship. You got a wife. And you got that favorite dessert, you know, Bobettes. With the whipped cream and the strawberries, the compote, you know, that you do. And it's like a strawberry shortcake, little circles. I want those things. I really like them. But if I sit in the house pining over the fact that I don't get Bobettes, and never open my mouth and say, hey, honey, can you make me some Bobettes, please? I will never receive the stuff that I believe I should have. Watch this thing. And if I wanted to come a little faster, it wouldn't hurt if I said, hey, honey, whatever you're doing in this kitchen, just let me help out. Where do you need me? How should I do it? Where should I go? I'm going to mix this thing. Can I stir that? I'm going to pour this in here, turn on the oven. What can I do so that I can see the result of my faith? Put some work on it. God, I know you're going to move. I know you're going to work. How can I do it? God, whatever you're doing in this season, don't do it without me. Let me be a part. Let me be there. Let me put a hand on it, God. I know you can do it by yourself, but let me just be a part of what you're doing. I'm trying to put some work on it. Because we got some hood folk in here. I'll say it this way. Closed mouths don't get fed. And you sitting in a corner of your theological room, sending up pretty flowery prayers, devoid of any work, will get you nothing. Good day, sir. Even the blind man on the side of the road had to scream at the top of his lungs, don't pass me by. I know you didn't come here for me. I know I'm receiving residual blessings. I know you're headed to see Zacchaeus. I'm not part of this plan at all. But while on others you're calling, don't pass me by. Jesus opened his mouth and said, bring him to me. That man had to walk over there. Jesus says, what do you want? That man could have said, God, whatever your will is good enough for me. Just stretch out your hand and put it over my household. Let your blessings fall like raindrops. God, I know your spirit. It burns like an all-consuming fire. If you could just warm my household with the presence of your spirit. God, okay, cool. Yes, spirit, warm, gotcha. But he had to do the hard work of expressly stating, I want to regain my sight. Jesus' response is, receive your sight. Your faith has made you whole. Put some work on it. James says, because otherwise, it's dead. Otherwise, it doesn't work. For just as the body without the spirit is dead, so also faith, devoid of works, are dead. Jesus believed this thing. He practiced it in everyday life, not just in the healings that he did, not just in the way he spoke to individuals, but he believed that he could save you. He believed he could fix you. He believed he could restore you. But it wasn't enough for him to sit in heaven with all of this faith. He put some work on it. He stepped down from his throne. The writer of Philippians says he removed his glory. He took off his crown. He emptied himself, taking on the form of a servant. He walked this earth, dust from the ground clinging to him. He wasn't the most beautiful man in the world. He gave up that beauty. He gave up that glory and took on calmly. He made himself low. He made himself small so he could put some work on it. He walked through the earth and touched people and spoke with individuals. He actually taught. He actually preached because he didn't want to leave it up to chance that you'd receive what is. He wanted his words to be written down as they came from his mouth. He wanted to put some work on it. And at the end of the day, he realized that he had done what he'd come to do except for one thing. So he went and he picked up a cross. carried that cross down a road toward a hill called Golgotha. He put some work on it. It was a heavy cross. He was burdened not just by the weight of it, but also the weight of his own fatigue, the stress of the beatings he was being inflicted upon, inflicted upon him, the ridicule, the weight of the press around him. But he put some work on it. He carried that cross to that hill, and they put that thing in the ground, but not before they put him on it. They nailed him to it. They stuck him, and they beat him, and they pricked him, because he believed, he had faith that you could be saved, that you could be ransomed. But it wasn't enough for him to simply believe it. He had to put some work on it. They took him from that cross, and they put him in a tomb, and he did not stop there, because if he had laid in the tomb, then you could not be ransomed from death. While you may be free from sin, you would still be trapped in your grave. So he rolled a stone away. It could have been done for him. He could have hoped that someone would come and move it, but he rolled a stone away, and then he went home to his father to proclaim that the work had been done. He put some work on it, and he invites you to join him now in this same service, in this same experience, in this same time, and put also some work on what it is you believe that God can do. So I want to do this because we all believe in varying degrees, but we all believe. We get that it's crazy. And I think because it's so crazy is why we're so hesitant to put work on it. The task of removing all of who you really are, that's a lot. I mean, we come here, we get nice, and we put on, seersucker suits, and we look all right. But we're hiding what's really going on inside. And the folk next to us may not recognize it, but we know who we are. We know. We may lie to ourselves, but we know. And the magnitude of that work is crazy. So for me to put some work on the faith is difficult. I do this thing. Some of you guys do it with me because you're like me. I have big dreams, big visions. I have big plans. I have big hopes. Hopes for myself, hopes for my family, hopes for this church. And they're so big that oftentimes what I'll do is I'll go into them already like, if it doesn't happen, it's no big deal. Because for me to invest the work required to get that thing done and for it to not happen would crush me. So I just, it'll happen. That thing that God told you to do, that book, that business, that job. We're talking James. Let's be practical. That family member, the one you just can't approach that one. For you to put such big, lofty visions and dreams and goals on that thing and it not come to fruition, it would crush you. So you just, that relationship, for some of you, it's the person. God said this person is for you. But I can't. Because what if they reject me, God? So I'm going to hope and believe and pray and have faith that one day they'll notice me. That degree that God placed on your heart. I'm not smart enough. I can't. Why bother applying? I'm not even going to put in there's no point in working for something that's going to fail. God said he could deliver me from my addiction to drugs. God said he could deliver you from my addiction to pornography. God said he could deliver me from my anger and those sinful expressions of that anger. God said he could take from me my self-loathing. He could remove from me my grief, my pain. I believe he can. But to put in this work to do it, and should it not happen, I can't. Try to sit here and believe. I know God can do it. I'll just believe. And hopefully he'll see me here and remember and he'll move on my behalf. I'm inviting you today to put down your dead and pick up some faith. The first step in that process is to put some work on it. Since we're in James and we're being practical, let's be practical. There are eyes in this room. Paul loves eyes. He talks about a cloud of many witnesses urging us on. He talks about assembling together for encouragement. He loves witnesses. I like Paul, so I like witnesses. So let's put some work on it in this way. Before these witnesses, there's nothing magical down here. But before these witnesses, if you right now, if you decree, God, I believe you, I have faith, I believe, help my unbelief, and you want to put some work on that belief, whatever it is that God has spoken to you, whatever he said to you, whatever it is, you know what it is. Whatever he says he can fix, whatever he says he can restore, whatever he says he can give, you know what it is. You want to put some work on it today before these witnesses. Stand to your feet and come down here with me. Let's put some practical steps on this thing. Let's literally take steps together.